Hello, everybody. It's Conor. We are back with your weekly edition of the debrief. No time off for us as we roll into Burnley on Saturday midday as the Whites take on the Clarets. Thank God football is back. Do you enjoy international football? I do not. So England are playing tonight against Finland in around 45 minutes. So we'll probably go for around about 45 minutes because I know some of you are interested in that tripe. I'm only interested in tournament football because I'm what they call a fickle fan. But without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-host for this fine event this evening, which we'll be talking about several things, including Patrick Bamford, Max Wober, release clauses, Elland Road is falling down, Burnley's recent signing, which has got us talking Jesse Marsch and Jessurun Raksaki. If that all sounds good to you, make sure you slap a like, get your comments in the section below. And without any further ado, Oscar Marriott and Gabe, we'll come to you first. Oscar, how the diddly are you, mate?
Good, mate.
For what?
Good, to be fair. Decent week, busy week, but all good, mate. All good.
How the diddly are you? He said. What?
Good. And we will come to the person in the top right who does actually quite look like Ned Flanders. How the diddly are you?
Hi, diddly. Hi, neighbor. I think my favorite episode is when Ned goes to the asylum. Do you remember when they try to rebuild his house and then it just collapsed?
Yeah. He's just losing the plot.
Now calm down, Italy. Gotta be nice. Hostility, Italy. Anyway,
you just need a green jumper and you'll absolutely fit the suit.
Yeah. I'll have to shave the beard part as well. I'm doing fine. Yeah, riveted by the international window. You know, honestly, no. Now I'm not doing fine. If I could go just a week without hearing Jesse Marsch's name, that'd be so great for me. Like, honestly, it would probably exponentially increase my mental health, physical health, even.
He seems to be just everywhere, doesn't he, for you? He's either in conversation with the US men's national team, or something's been said on a podcast or whatever about him on the Leeds sphere as well. So he's always there and thereabouts. But
Yep.
Oscar and Ethan said, who's been a member of the channel for a while, Oscar versus Gabe boxing match, who will win? Do you know what? That's something for me to answer. After meeting both of them, they're actually very, very, very similar in terms of stature. Oscar is actually, you may think he's quite, he doesn't always give off this demeanor of a tall individual. I think it's how you just sit on the camera, Oscar. You kind of haunched over. Oscar is a tall individual, and Gabe is as well. So definitely in the same weight class. Both quite slender as well. So yeah, I don't know who packs the biggest punch.
The question is, who's younger? I think Oscar is younger, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so I would tip Oscar to win then.
Is Oscar agile? Oscar, would you describe yourself as agile?
I've got the stamina to go the 12 rounds. I'm a points. I'm a points man. Maybe not got the power of a knockout, but the points. That's the way to go. Get the judges on side early doors. Judges on side. Sponsorship deal before the fight starts, and then it's all sorted. But that's just boxing in 2024, guys. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't say. I think if it's straight boxing, I would probably tip Oscar to win because of the age. I was a wrestler in high school, so if it's an MMA match, I'd probably do okay.
Now. He's dropping it.
I'd probably do okay in MMA, but if it's against Oscar, I'm not saying in MMA objectively. I do. I wouldn't.
Yeah. I was quite surprised when I first met Oscar. I definitely felt like I could fit in his pocket. But let's get on to the Luke L said, "Morning, gents. How you, mate?" Derek says Oscar's really tall. I met him outside the Centenary Pavilion. Oscar, the famous man around Elland Road. I'm sure if Gabe came around in that kit as well, he'd definitely be spottable.
I'm wearing the club sick. I call it the club sick color.
That's my least favorite Leeds United shirt, just to make you feel really good about yourself.
To be fair, I have other kits, right? But the ones I am committed to wearing on this show are the black kit that you hate, and this kit that I know you hate. So I think that's all I'm going to wear to be fair on the show,
just because I hate them all.
Yeah, that might be the difference in a combat sports scenario, Oscars. I don't know that you're mean enough to want to hurt somebody on the other end.
Oh, I don't know. If
If it's me, he'll be all right.
Early doors, you know.
If it's last week, he'd definitely.
I wouldn't rule it out, Gabe. You know, let's not be too hasty here. You know,
Oscar left that stream and started pumping some iron back out the minute it was over.
Yeah, I'd try to ask you both to talk about. You know, they always say that thing on social media where it's like make this into football terms. I don't really know. You do that. Oscar just said I'd be quite underrated. Don't put me down. So I'm trying to think of that in football terms. Maybe people in the chat can let us know.
Oscar's the best at translating into football terms.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of.
Ramazani is our Lionel Messi. I learned last week. So,
there you go. I'm glad we agreed on something, Gabe. I'm glad we agreed on something.
Always, my friend. Always.
Okay, so let's get into it and chat, engage with this, of course. Look, we know it's the international break. We know it's slow. The Leeds United news is difficult, isn't it? And I'm sure when we get into the Burnley game, things are going to pick up. Obviously, Wednesday, hump day as well. We need football, don't we? Oscar, we learned earlier on in the week, and this is something that me and Gabe, I wanted to bring to that. I was just speaking about it before you came on, actually, and I've made a video on it in particular. Ben Jacobs was sort of on the Leeds network, really. It feels he gets a few bites from what he says, etc., as a neutral journalist. But he was saying that apparently Patrick Bamford's a priority for the club. He's willing to extend. Obviously, this is a rumor. He's willing to extend his deal. He's very happy in Leeds. And I have to say, if just as a piece of news, mate, this sort of riled me up about 2 or 3 days ago. Do you think it's? I mean, in what shape could Leeds United? What logic could we apply to offering Patrick Bamford a new deal? Keep me sane by telling me there is no option here whatsoever, and this is just gobbledygook.
I mean, yeah, listen, there's always going to be rumours, certainly around this time, just after a week after the window. Obviously, you've got the rumours going into the next window already starting, and you've got to think the chances of a rumour at this stage, this early in September, of being accurate relating to January just doesn't feel particularly likely. But what I will say about Patrick Bamford is he's probably third choice now. I think I'd probably say that as much as I think we all have kind of said ourselves that several times on this show alone, never mind, on separate YouTube shows, Joel Perreault is best as a number 10 for me. But ultimately, Brendan Aaronson's form, the Nonto scenario of Nonto probably coming inside, Joel Perreault's future at Leeds is probably as a number 9. Even if you don't think that's his best position in terms of getting minutes, I think, because we have to remember Mateo Joseph is still a young man. He's still a young man, and we're going to be asking a lot of it.
The best player in the world right now, mate. I'll have none of that.
He's up there. He's up there. Won't deny it. But no, he can't play 46 games of 90 minutes. He's not going to be able to do that. If we're being realistic, he can. It's not impossible, but it's not going to be the best, from my point of view, for Mateo Joseph's development, playing week in, week out, 90 minutes here and there. Of course, when he's on the hot streak, like he is now, playing really, really well, obviously got that goal before the international break, by all means, keep playing Mateo Joseph. But I think when we start playing the Tuesday Saturdays, which is going to be coming pretty soon, sort of 3 weeks' time, start of October.
I feel with the Tuesday Saturdays and they're like almost Wednesday Saturdays / Sundays. It's like you want football back, but then you get
not that much. You don't want it that much. That's too much.
Then you get the championship calendar, and it's like, oh no, like okay, and then you just can't wait for the international break again. But then you hate it when you're there. It's I
don't want Tuesday night games in November. You just don't want it. Just read the room, EFL. Read the room. But no, with Mateo Joseph, at that point is where I think we've got to start rotating him. And I think that's where Joel Perreault comes into it. And that's where, interestingly, Patrick Bamford comes into it. Now, I think Patrick Bamford, to get a new deal, has got to do a lot more, personally, in terms of, for me, to get a new deal on merit. But I mean, for this season, if we're just talking about this season, Patrick Bamford as a third-choice striker at this level is not a bad option at all to have. It means we can rotate Joseph out of the team. It means we do have a focal point if we need one from time to time. Of course, we can't be relying on Patrick Bamford to play every single game. We all know that.
But the new deal.
A new deal is one where, should that happen for me in the here and now, right now, do I think Patrick Bamford should get a new deal? For me personally, I'd say no. I don't think it's actually in Pat's best interest either, because what's Bamford now? 31 this year, I think.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, does he really want to be a second or third choice striker? Maybe he will still be the first choice striker ahead of Joseph. Obviously, we've not seen Bamford and Joseph fit at the same time so far this season. But for me, I think Joseph has got that spot now. So it's one of those, really. It's obviously a big commitment for us as well, for a 31-year-old, on a, say, a new 2 or 3 year deal. If it's even a thing. But I think if you're looking at this season, I've no issue with Patrick Bamford staying at the club. No issue at all with that. But moving forward,
what if a club came in for him in January, Gabe? Club came in January for Pat Bamford. We know what's going on with Joseph, but let's say Leeds didn't look at a forward option, which I don't think we will, even if Bamford was to go, because I think they genuinely heavily rely on maybe the rotation of Ramazani. Oscar was speaking about last week, and obviously Peru there as well. We know Nonto could at a stretch play as a false nine. I don't think they go for a forward again. I think there's other priorities. If we could sell Bamford in January without any replacement, would you look to do that? Just get him off the books?
It depends on the figures we're talking. So if a new deal means a reduced wage, I'm not having him on the same wages as a third string forward. Like, absolutely not. But, and this is the thing. At this point in his career, he'll think that he still has a number of years left in him. I would dispute that. But, you can't blame a player for thinking that they have something left. If we could get a decent amount of money for Pat Bamford and some other clubs paying the wages he wants, great. If he's talking about staying at Leeds for a reduced wage, which I doubt, because again, he'll still bet on himself for the next couple of seasons. It's not like he's 35, 36, although I think his legs are probably like a 35, 36, 37-year-olds. It's not as though he's going to see himself that way. So I think it's an if and then type of proposition. If we're talking about a significantly reduced wage, because I can't be having, again, look at that number, 40,000 a week. I can't be having that.
You can't be paying a third, even at Premier League level. You cannot be paying a third choice or second choice striker. Yeah, really, that kind of wage for me personally.
Exactly. I agree, Oscar.
And that's someone, by the way, that's someone, credit to him in a sense, but that's someone who essentially took a cut in his pay as well. So he's only 70 grand a week in the Premier League.
Right. So listen, if another club wants to come along and pay that wage, and we can send him out of town and get some kind of, because the thing is, you want to budget for a third string striker. You don't want to pay the amount of money that you would, for somebody that's going to contend for that number 1 spot as the number 9. So yeah, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. If a team wants to pay money, I can't imagine too many teams would, but that'll make it worth our while to send him out of town, and they're going to pick up that wage bill fine. And if we are negotiating a new contract, it better be for reduced wage, which again, I'm not really.
He's never going to do that though, is he?
Who knows? I mean, maybe he's not. But
someone's mentioned it. Ian in the comments has mentioned that about pay as you play, whether Patrick Bamford would take that or not. But that, probably you don't really hear of that so much these days. I think 10, 15 years ago, that was quite a common thing. I remember Jonathan Woodgate, when he left Leeds, he had a couple of deals at like Stoke and Tottenham where I think he was on a pay as you play, and it seemed to work relatively well for club and player. So I don't know. Would Patrick Bamford?
I doubt it nowadays, Oscar. It's a different type of world for the players.
Yeah,
again, he'll be saying, "I'm in my early 30s. I've got a lot of football left to play." That's why I don't think he's going to want to take a pay cut. So I think the best thing to do is to let him move on. I know that the report mentioned it's a priority, but a priority for who? I'm sure for him, it's a great situation. Is the club that committed to? I doubt very much. I mean, I doubt very much that Daniel Farke wants to use that amount of money on a guy that's not playing.
Maybe it is reduced terms. Maybe the 49ers are looking at his contract right now and saying what 2.5 million quid a year, which makes me feel sick physically. You sort of looking at that, and maybe the proposition is what Ben Jacobs hasn't maybe included in his report is the fact that the 49ers want to offer him a deal where there's a reduction there, and maybe it'll intertwine with the fact that he cares about the club. But FYI, guys, this is a business. Patrick Bamford, where was he born? Nottingham. He's been at Leeds for a considerable amount of time, of course, but football is a business, and if he can keep his family safe and secure on 2.5 million quid for the next 2.5 years, then why on earth would he reduce
his agent? His agent would be failing him if he said, go ahead and take a reduced wage at Leeds and stay there. Like, no.
It just doesn't feel like some. Yeah, as you said, guys. I think in terms of pays you play, reduced terms would be make this one make more sense. But it just doesn't feel to me like something that could happen. I mean, Bamford to me, and people might take this the wrong way. It feels like a Saudi Arabia move potentially. Potentially not to one of the top end Saudi Arabian.
Is he? I was going to say, is he marketable enough to?
Yeah, but you see,
go over Saudi Arabia.
You've seen some moves like that. It just feels to be like I think he could get a deal elsewhere on that kind of money, but probably not in England.
I don't know why I could see, not similar money, but I could see with what they're doing at this moment in time, the one that I picked out the hat the other day, maybe closest wage-wise with the cap that they've got right. Well, the lack of cap that they've got right now in League One is someone like Birmingham coming in just spending ridiculous money for an experienced striker.
That's a good point.
They've just spent Stanislas. This will be linked now, won't it, in one of the in Football Insider tomorrow. Birmingham in for Patrick Bamford, but I feel that those wages maybe could be covered. It's a big profile signing for a League One side, and potentially that could be an experienced player to go up alongside you, Jay Stan. What's his name? The one who just signed up. Jay Stansfield, up front.
He would absolutely melt in Saudi Arabia. Patrick Bamford. Can you imagine?
I don't know.
Playing in the hot sun.
Something like that, I could see Patrick. I mean, Liam Cooper had an offer this time last year, if we remember. So, it's not totally beyond the realms kind of thing. And obviously, you've seen Liam Cooper is likely going to, I can't remember where it was he was going to now.
CSK Sofia, wasn't it?
Sofia, yeah. And then obviously you've seen Charlie Cresswell go to the Czech Republic. I can't remember the club either.
Cresswell?
Yeah, it was Czech Republic, wasn't it?
Charlie Cresswell. He went to Toulouse, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he went to Toulouse.
I can't even remember. Yeah, it's
Czech Republic.
That signing just kind
of. Is that where you went?
Yeah. Well,
Czechia is a nice country.
It's a great country.
It's a nice place.
Prague.
Yeah.
Tell you what, you want to get yourself down to Prague, honestly, if you can, and you to see out the back end of your career. But anyway, it just feels to me like I don't know, Bamford's. It's not become a thing until Bamford's on the pitch, is it really? Either way, until Bamford's, we've actually seen him in action this season, just doesn't feel like something that's going to really materialise to me.
Let's get a couple of comments in, mate. Problem is with some fans is that Bamford might not play for another 10 games and then he will come on as a sub and score, and then people will say sign him up.
Good comment by Ryan.
I think Ryan's majority of the time Ryan's spot on as well. Tom says very reduced, but don't mind having Bamford in the squad. He probably adds a lot more behind the screens. Lots of managers have trusted him. Jason, I can hear him and Luke screaming this at me. Where the hell have you got that jumper from, Conor, mate? It is from Frank's Football, my friend, which you can get online. However, if you want even better merch, you can go to the link in the description below Back 4 and One Leeds collab. Much better, I have to say. Maybe the MLS would suit Bamford. One for you,
they would. I don't think they would come in for him. If a lot of times they're going to overpay for older talent, but typically they're coming with a higher name profile. They look to elevate the league, and the kind of championship level or below signings that they make typically are younger players.
Is there not some sort of like middling clubs that could? I don't know. Is there not some sort of like middling clubs who could, in the MLS, who've got a fair bit of money, who would go for?
They wouldn't spend it on Patrick Bamford. He's not played a lot. Like they like to make splash signings. Remember, it's not. They aren't clubs in the MLS. They're franchises, and the deals come from the league first. So, it's like just look up McDonald's ownership, and that's how you can better understand how MLS operates. But I don't see that happening for him.
Okay,
well, there's any interest there.
Well, let's have a little discussion about Max Verber as well, lads. I kind of understand Gabe's point of view, but I think we should elaborate on it as well. Max Verber looks like he's picked up another injury whilst he was on Austria duty. Apparently, he actually played quite well in the game from what you read. And I wanted to, we don't know the severity of it, but Oscar, I wanted to come to you initially. I feel there's a bit of a harsh casting on this guy. And I feel it's really changed from pre-season. Pre-season, he was an unbelievable backup. We were potentially going to a back three. Strout, Rodon, and Verber. Looking at this guy who's played for Austria in the Euros, I think he only played a couple of games, didn't he? Don't mention France, Oscar. But he played a couple of games there, didn't he? Looked decent. Was part of that setup of which Ralf Rangnick's Austria doing exceptionally well at this moment in time. Trajectory is up, but. Do you think it's a little bit harsh at this moment, Sam? I know we had that game against Borough, but the context was, for me, his ball playing out from the back was good. I just thought physically and maybe the reading of the game wasn't quite there, but there was a real synergy problem I felt in that game in terms of the amount of change. You know, it was a very, very different back four as well. And, you know, I would argue this season that Joe Rodon maybe put in that defence would struggle on his current maybe lowerly form, of which we're used to seeing a very, very good level from Joe Rodon at championship level. Do you think it's a little bit harsh right now, mate? Because I still look at Max Verber and think he's probably the best backup centre-back in this division. I think there's maybe a little bit of a lack of respect on his name, probably because of the reports that we heard in the summer that he would welcome a Gladbach return.
I think there's a few different factors at play here. I think first and foremost, as you mentioned, the Borough game was a shocker for Max Verber. There's no getting away from that. And obviously there was mitigating factors. You know, it was a poor team we put out that night. Well, an unbalanced team we put out that night. Poor performance. It wasn't just down to Max Verber. Then Borough had some really, really good moments going forwards. But fundamentally, the old adage in football is you're only as good as your last game. And for Max Verber, that feels like the case. You know, the fact that it's all well and good being a backup player, but if you come in as a backup and have a shocker, and then it's another sort of 2-3 months until you're next playing, it's that momentum that you're struggling to build. And I do believe Max Verber is definitely good enough to start games at this level. I do definitely believe that. And I do believe that at times this season, we will need to rotate at the back. You know, I think we're not just in the forward areas, we do need to rotate across the team. I do thoroughly believe that. The issue is, if you're in and out the team, you've not really got that momentum. You do worry that if Pascal got an injury, if Joe Rodon got an injury or a really bad run of form, whatever happens, or suspension, just anything like that, you'd be thinking Max Verber would come in and there would be nervousness about that because of the last game he played, the fact he hasn't got any momentum behind him. Of course, he's played relatively well for Austria when he's had the chance, aside from that France game. But there is that, but it doesn't feel like enough really at this moment in time. So it's a difficult one. I think being the backup at this level to Rodon and Strauch is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. We saw it last season to a lesser extent with Liam Cooper, in terms of when he came in, he had no kind of momentum, didn't look match sharp. And that's the case. I think you get that with your backup centre-backs quite a lot. With backups in any position, really. And I think Max Verber is certainly a confidence player. I don't think there's any doubt about that at all. I think you saw from going back to the time under Javi Gracia now and the back end of Jesse Marsch when he first arrived. He arrived and probably put in, close to man-the-match performances in the first sort of 4 or 5 games. And I think it was, I'm trying to remember which game it was now.
Go on, the Oscar archives.
I feel like it was Brighton at home. He had a bit of a shocker, I think.
And that will be right, by the way.
I think
Oscar's
it was 2-2.
Oscar's got the memory of the elephant.
2-2 against Brighton's not a bad result, but I remember Max Verber, I feel like he had a really bad game in that one and then followed it up with some pretty poor performances. And then obviously Liverpool happens, Palace happens. In fact, I don't think he actually played in that Palace game, but Liverpool game happens. Bournemouth away,
he was our best centre-back in the Premier League, wasn't it? It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, but Conor, to be fair, it's not that that's not the highest of praise, to be fair.
No,
but
it's
I do agree. It's
crazy, isn't it? And I think it's just mad how, when you look at it, Gabe, it's crazy how these off-the-field antics just shape things, isn't it? I mean, I think we've had conversation about it. Willian Gnonto, it felt like in the Premier League was our ace card. I understand that the statistics might not have backed that up, but It felt like in the Premier League, he was the golden boy. We couldn't believe we got him through. Obviously, Somerville it felt like he was just creeping up, but Gnonto was the main man. Verber, from a defensive perspective, was the main man as well. And it's crazy how off the field antics can impact that, isn't it?
We say off the field antics, but I mean, listen, most of what we're operating on with this player is reports on reports on reports, right? I mean, believe it if you want, disbelieve it if you want. There's an equal amount of evidence for each. I just think if we're going to come up with strong points of view on it, which I'm not saying you are, but then I would have to hear more from the player himself. I think for me, my optimism was, and I never believed that we'd come out and do this, but the potentiality of playing with 3 at the back, that would be a really interesting tandem. And to kind of see that difference in formation. Obviously, we know that the manager isn't really going to do that very often, if ever. So
give him a little bit more protection as well, wouldn't it?
Right. But I mean, realistically, though, if your first option off the bench is in elite statistical categories across the whole of his last 365 days as a center half. You could do a lot worse than that. And I think that in terms of having him come off the bench, sure. I mean, there's no doubt that his most recent performance for Leeds wasn't particularly good. Oscar pointed out all the mitigating circumstances in that match, so I won't rehash them. But as a manager, you'd like to see, your center half coming out in the 97th percentile for tackles and the 96th percentile for blocks, for 86th percentile in non-penalty goals, 92nd percentile in shots, 96th percentile in assists, and 92nd percentile in shot creating actions. Progressive passes, 92nd percentile. Progressive carries, 93rd percentile. To have that as your backup is
we need to get a face on. We need to get your face on just a T-shirt with percentile on it.
Percentile.
That's it. Percentile.
It's just me saying the word percentile. But this reminds you of, and again, this isn't over his career; it's over the past year or past season. So, you want to see improved performances, and because of the reports, you have to ask questions about his level of commitment. But you have to feel better about the center half stable now than you did last season. Do
you think he goes in, Jan? Hunch?
I don't know. I'm 50-50 about it, Connor. I don't know. If he doesn't get much game time, a player like that wants to be playing. But I think we should highlight there's no major.
Sorry, mate. It seemed to be picking up towards the back end, didn't it, of the window, the rumors?
Yeah, and the amount of rumors we saw flying around about players and their discontentment. I mean, I swear somebody threw Willie Nanto rumors out there in the last couple of days just for us to, to struggle. But I will say that, if he's not getting a lot of game time, a 26-year-old who's, the shelf life for a footballer. I know there's some footballers that play longer, but he has to be thinking about his career as well. So if he's not getting significant rotation minutes, he probably.
But it's got to be permanent. It's got to be a permanent, no loan. That doesn't help Leeds.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. But we'll see.
100%.
Just one other thing to mention on Wober is the fact that it'll sound like I'm nitpicking a little bit here, but having your backup centre back being left-footed isn't the most ideal thing in the world. I think the factor for that is, if it was Joe Rodon who got injured or suspended, you're thinking all of a sudden you have to play two left-footers at centre back, and for me, a left-footer can't play on the right.
Yeah, but Oscar, it's Pascal that usually gets hurt for us, not.
Yeah, there is that. There is that as well. But it's only a small thing. It's only a small thing to say. But I wouldn't like the idea of Pascal and Wober alongside each other. Even though maybe profile-wise they suit playing alongside each other, I just don't like the idea of having two left-footed centre-backs. And
we've seen it. It's not particularly great, is it? Like,
it just doesn't look right. It just looks, no matter what the team is. I remember City did it years ago when they had Laporte and Ake as centre-back kind of thing. When you're talking two really, really good players, it just looks ugly. It just doesn't look right at all. But it's only a small thing to point out. Obviously there's other factors that you could say.
It's when you're building up. It's when you're building up, innit? I feel back.
It just doesn't look right at all.
Back in the day, when you used to do Route 1, I think it was McQueen and Hunter. Oscar used to play. Obviously, Leeds at the back, and they were both left footers. Like when it was sort of Route 1-esque football, you could go a little bit more Route 1. I feel like it was a little bit more advantageous. You can have two left.
It's different times, so now.
But if an opposition side's pressing you on your right side and you're left-footed, it's a nightmare, especially if you're trying to build up and create angles. So I'd agree with that. Obviously there's DeBayo there as Jason Brooms just said in there, so that's interesting. I wanted to get all of your thoughts as well, and everyone in the chat, on Illan Meslier comments. Well, he's not specifically said it, but there's rumors suggesting that apparently a release clause, if he's to sign a new contract with Leeds United, which expires in 2026, he wants to essentially start negotiating a contract now, which includes a release clause. I saw one Leeds fan saying, well, this just proves that Willie Gnonto has a release clause in his contracts. And I thought, no, what? I was like, no, I don't know. That doesn't prove anything. And the worst thing about that comment is it had about 34 likes. I was like, no, that's not what that means. But if anything, it's the opposite. But yeah, crazy. But yeah, so Oscar, Illan Meslier, agent talk apparently suggesting that he would like an exit clause in there. Should we be negotiating a contract with Illan Meslier, or would you give that a wide berth and let him almost run down his contract till 2026?
I think with a lot of players, really, not just Meslier and Bamford, I think we should be very reluctant to extend contracts at this point in time. Obviously, if we do, get off to a great start, these next sort of 3 or 4 months and look in a really solid position in January, then you can do what maybe Burnley did, sort of 2 years ago, where they started planning for the Premier League sort of in that January window kind of thing. Obviously, Burnley's probably not the best example in the world because that went horrifically wrong. But
but if Company had have adapted, if he'd have adapted,
it was just
then that could have been a different scenario. They had the players
it went.
But
just
they had the players
that went wrong for him, though.
They had the players that were good enough, mate, for that. I felt that season. A lot of people had him staying up as well. Just didn't.
No, it's no doubt about it. But I just think I'm just anticipating someone saying, "Oh, but Burnley went straight back down." But I do think Burnley went about it the right way in terms of squad planning in January. I think you've seen Wolves do it in the past when they went up. They sort of started planning for that Premier League, there and then kind of thing. Trying to secure their loanees quite early on, contracts, different bits and pieces like that. And I think that is something that we could look at in January if we get off to a great start and look in a really solid position in January. But I think at this stage, committing to players that we're not maybe sure on now, never mind in the Premier League, just doesn't seem a great idea to me. It just doesn't, especially when it feels like it, from what the reports are saying, it feels like it's more player than club, where this is kind of starting from. The tail can't lead the dog, is my belief on this. I think in the past under Radrizzani and Orta, we'd have been like, "Oh, right, we need to get this contract all sorted out." We can't be like that anymore. It has to be a case of, if we want to extend the player, we'll do it. But if not, we'll let them run out the contract or look to sell or look to loan, whatever it is. And that's what I do believe we've been better at, under the 49ers. But yeah, I just don't see a point at this moment in time for us in extending Meslier at this point. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. If his form doesn't pick up, you've still got a summer next year to sell Meslier. And you've still got time to extend if Meslier can recapture that 2021, sort of 2022 form. So I don't really see much point behind it. And I don't really think it's one to get too worked up on. And it feels like Melier's agents had quite a lot to say, really, since we went down. Certainly in that first summer, he had quite a bit to say as well. So, if I'm maybe, Nick Hammonds, or Steinson there, maybe having a little bit of a word maybe with Meslier about that, in terms of, hang on a minute, your form hasn't been great, let's be honest. Maybe the focus should be on the pitch rather than off the pitch, really, at this moment in time.
I would like to say that the only release clause I'd like to see in Meslier's contract is our right to arbitrarily release him whenever we want to. That would be great. But realistically, though, think about it. If we set a release clause, none of us in this digital room rate Meslier particularly. I mean, do we? I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think we collectively rate him as maybe where we thought he might be 3 or 4 seasons ago, right? He's dropped off a little bit. If you set a release, if you set a release clause that you don't think people are going to come in for, and some French club, it probably would be a French club, does, then great. Because I mean, on the open market, just normal transfers, you don't want to lose players to a contract that runs out if they have some value now. So
depends how much Leeds value him as well.
Exactly. If it's a low release clause, then no. There's
talks in the summer about when Marseille and De Zerbi were apparently in for him, and that was all on the French side. We're talking 20 million plus. I mean,
I would have loved for them
staggering.
To pay that for Illan Meslier.
What's a realistic fee for him? What's a genuine realistic fee for him? Like from an intelligent perspective, obviously you've kind of got to use your heart in it as well, a bit of sentiment. But genuinely, from a market value, from a business standpoint, 2 years left in his career, where he is right now, the experience under his belt, what would you say is a realistic fee for Illan Meslier?
It depends. Like I would 15, 17.
Really?
That is if you don't watch a lot of him and you look at kind of, because he still is highly rated. Scouting departments, depending on what they look at, I still find this unconscionable. But yeah, they'll look at clean sheets. They'll look at things like that. They'll I would not be surprised if a team thinks, hey, if we get him in the right system, with the right coaching, with the right defenders around him, he could be a really good asset for us. He's still young, they'd say. So I think if you set a release clause at 18 to 20, I think that's good money to make on Meslier if a team triggers it. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's very, very difficult to value Meslier market value wise, because I think, if we were having this conversation, say 2.5, maybe even 2 years ago, we'd have been saying very different answers. I think on Meslier, it's a strange one. I think in the world of a goalkeeper as well, he's still young for a goalkeeper. Of course, there's young and there's young, but he's young and he's played a lot of games as well.
But goalkeepers don't go for that much money. They really don't.
And he has played a lot of games, so it's like the ceiling. Of course, is he 24 now? I think Meslier 24. I'm pretty sure. You're thinking normally you say 24-year-old goalkeeper. He's nowhere near his best at that point. He's still got another 5, 6, maybe even 7 or 8 years of getting to his peak. But I just think with Meslier, I'm not really seeing enough on the ball. In terms of him being a good ball playing goalkeeper. I think, to be honest, that's probably one of the weaker parts of his game. Shot stopping wise, whilst he can still produce some wonder saves, we're not seeing that on a consistent enough basis.
No.
I think for the last 2 years, really, if we're being honest, Meslier's probably cost us more points than he saved us, and that's never a great position to be in as a goalkeeper. Not even talking about him saving us loads of points. You're just talking about him breaking even, if you like, in terms of over a season. Mistakes will happen, we know that, but you want your goalkeepers to be kind of breaking even or learning from mistakes. I think what we're seeing is a lot of the same mistakes. Shots close to his body or crosses. I think it seems to be his main issues really with Meslier. I think fundamentally, reflexes wise, as I said just a minute ago, you're looking still at like Leicester save. You still wonder saves in there from Meslier from time to time, but it's not enough. It has to be growth now. He has to find that sort of 2020, 2021 level. And I'm reluctant to say he's a poor goalkeeper, because for me, when you show the level he did, around the Bielsa time, you think, how can a goalkeeper lose all that kind of thing? How good he was in those sort of first 2 years. So whether
it's a very short period of time, though, Oscar. Like the actual underlying data was that it was really half of the season that he was really good. And
I think that's a little bit harsh. Thinking that first season back, I thought yes, there was some mistakes in there as well, but I think considering how manic we were in that first season back, how many chances the opposition had, I did think he had a really good season that first season back. But of course, it doesn't excuse the last 2 or 3 at all. So it's a really strange one with Meslier. You don't often see a player without an injury or without something major happening drop off the way Meslier has. So it's a strange one, really. I know we've had in the past people like Alex Mowat, players like that who showed loads of potential and then get an injury and then drop off. That's not been the case with Meslier. He's still been playing week in, week out. It's just, I don't know, I can't think of a player whose development's gone in a similar path to Meslier to even compare it to. So it's just a very strange one to rate. But in terms of value, I'd be sort of more thinking sort of the 10, 12 million mark, really, maybe even lower than that. I think it's only because there is obviously interest from France. The fact he has still got the international honours at under 21 level. There is some bargaining power there with Meslier, but for me, the value is nowhere near what it was 3-4 years ago when you had the likes of PSG. I think Man United at one point looking at him. So it's a very strange one, Meslier.
Well, yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see what happens to him. Elland Road is falling down. That is a chant that I heard the Hull City fans chant at Leeds United.
What a clever chant.
Last weekend.
A clever ranks right up there with Leeds are falling apart again. These guys, nothing gets past these sharp fans.
Yeah, and that was a chant. Now, that opens a wider discussion. Is Elland Road actually falling down? Now, it is a stadium that is definitely in need of a lick of paint. At this moment in time, I do kind of go to Elland Road, and as much as it's got that mystique that you love as a Leeds United fan, it's the historical context behind it and all that. It does kind of feel at this moment in time that the 49ers will be desperate, absolutely desperate, especially with what they've conjured up across the pond to really ignite and change that stadium. Gabe, it does feel at this moment in time that Elland Road does need that sort of I don't know, that sort of pump into the 21st century, really. It is a little bit haggard, and it's interesting right now, isn't it? Because you feel like the 49ers just can't do anything until we get to the Premier League, or that's what we're led to believe
that's
anyway.
Right. That's right. I mean, well, it's just when, you have to make sure you have the money. Listen, I don't have a lot of opinion on this. Of the three of us, I go to Elland Road the least. I get there once a year, basically. So, I can't speak to, and even then I spend half the match disassociated, just sort of staring out blankly into the pitch while people around me talk. So
that's a Gabe problem, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know where you go with that, mate.
Listen,
that's just Gabe.
You go to a therapist is what you do. Listen, I'm quite happy to speculate openly about things I feel reasonably informed about. I have no idea what they're going to do. I imagine they're not going to start major construction until they get to the championship, but other clubs have done differently. Obviously, it's a different level of investment in terms of some of the changes they've talked about making. And I hear that pie has finally been scrubbed off the walls. I heard that happen a little bit of time ago, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but
Gabe, that, and I know we've spoken about it before, and there'll be a pot for this and there'll be a pot for that. But I mean, I remember when Fulham did it in the Premier League, and obviously the revenue that they'll bring in on match day will drastically decrease as well, because there's an entire stand that's out of use, really. But on the same on that same point, really, I genuinely feel that this would obviously impact the signings that we put on the pitch. Famously with Arsene Wenger and the Emirates, when they moved there, they had to drastically reduce any sort of incomings, really. And when the incomings did come in, they were on the cheap, and that was Arsenal fans' problems for years and years and years. It does feel like, I mean, me and my dad would always have this conversation when we were in the Premier League last time out, because there's always rumours about Conor wanting to do stuff. And we always used to have this conversation. We said, but when do you do it? Because let's say hypothetically, I mean, a neutral come on here and say how arrogant you are, but the goal for Leeds United is next season to be in the Premier League. If we were in the Premier League next season, I just find it a little bit crazy to have two separate pots. One is going to impact the other, isn't it? And that's how I feel like that the timing element is key, really.
You'd expect that Red Bull money to come into play as well. I mean, what's the sponsorship deal for, if not to help get things like that over the line? And you would also be probably targeting some pretty aggressive construction scheduling. So, I mean, listen, everybody knows it's something that needs to happen. It's a short-term profit loss for a much larger gain later on. So, but I don't think it happens unless Leeds get promoted. I think it's contingent upon that.
Yeah, I'd feel a little bit nervy, I'd have to say, Oscar, if we'd go into that first season and we'd be under the impression immediately that Leeds were going into stadium renovations. I feel like just the on-the-pitch stuff would be impacted drastically by that. I just don't think Leeds are that much of a richer club to be able to, ignite both sections, really, there.
Yeah, the timing is crucial, because obviously if we went back into the Premier League, demand for tickets is one factor. I think the main thing is, you look at the stadium, it is probably going to be the West Stand, which I would imagine is where the work would begin. And I would personally like something like Anfield in terms of the way they've gone about things, in terms of the stadium's pretty much stayed the same. They just renovated, say, sort of 10, 20% of it. Even the stands they have, when you, say, watch Liverpool on Sky or whatever, the stands where the camera is, that is pretty much the same in sort of like 50, 60% of it, apart from it's just had another tier added to it, and the actual facilities inside have been improved. So I would like something like that, where it's small changes rather than big changes, because the bigger the change you make, the more time you've got in terms of where there's issues with tickets, in terms of not enough people in the stadium, revenues off the back of that being an issue. Another just little minor points as well is with stuff like the West Stand, is you've got obviously you have changing rooms, different facilities on that side of the ground as well. So then all of a sudden you probably have to move that over to the East Stand. So there's different bits and pieces.
And it feels as well that it's a big sell for a player. If you come to the Premier League and you've got X, Y, and Z. Looking at a certain individual, and obviously the facilities at Thorpe Arch are still Premier League level, but I do think you show them Elland Road, and especially with the spaceships around nowadays, you feel that it would be. I genuinely believe, obviously, we know London's a massive selling point, and Manchester because of the international airports, of course, but I genuinely do believe that the stadium's a massive thing, a huge
Take them
thing.
to the Faversham in Leeds. This is what our city is all about. No, listen, there's something that I think is important to think about. I like that. I really like what Oscar brought up there in terms of Liverpool. The Henry Group had significant experience in restoring a historical ground at Fenway Park in Boston. It's the ownership consortium for Liverpool. The 49ers group is a little bit different. They moved away from Candlestick Park and created a whole new thing, not in San Francisco anymore. FYI, that the stadium's more in the South Bay than it is actually in the city, and it's state of the art, brand new. It's wonderful, and I'm not saying they do the same thing. I mean, obviously, it's some different parties are involved as well, but I do think that would be ideal. What Oscar's saying, doing some renovations, especially when you're talking about a ground like Elland Road, but I don't know that that's what they'll do. I think they may go for broke with it, and I'm not sure. Again, I'm not in the know. I don't know about this, but just judging the way they've done their previous renovate, they didn't look to renovate the old ground in San Francisco. They looked to create a whole new stadium, and maybe there's enough.
You mean like say the White Hart Lane, Tottenham kind of?
No, it's probably like obviously Wimbledon folded, didn't they? But when they created MK Dons, it was about 100 miles away, wasn't it, from where the initial
don't say that,
stadium was?
Conor.
It wouldn't be. I don't think it'd be that far away.
This will be on Footy Insider in 10 minutes. Conor says that Leeds will relocate to Birmingham in 2026. No, I think the main thing to avoid is you want to keep that home advantage. You can't. For me, you can't change Elland Road too much. I think it's a bit like Anfield. West Ham. I know 2 or 3 West Ham fans, and they kind of say the same thing about Upton Park. As much as there's no doubt the move in terms of revenue has been an incredible move for West Ham. In terms of would they have been able to, as Conor alluded to, make the signs of Fulkrug, Kudus, Paqueta, players like that.
Missing a big one there.
Crescencio Somerville, didn't want to include him actually, but of course we'll include Somerville. Would they have been able to make those signings as easily, with Upton Park and maybe that less, glamorous kind of... I mean, West Ham's become a much more glamorous club now, but I think they've lost a lot of its character as well. I think
the East End's now a nice place in London. Can you believe that?
And that's absolute nonsense. That it should never ever be the case. It's I'm just thinking of the Sean Dyche meme there when he says absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those.
I went on a Jack the Ripper tour in the East End of London. And
where are we going with this?
I'm just saying, I was on a Jack the Ripper tour. It was obviously supposed to be like dark and gloomy, but it was gentrified. It kind of took the historical context out of it for me, really.
Yeah. It's
anything to add on that?
That's my concern,
sure.
Conor.
I'm not sure I can compare that, to be honest, to football, but I'll do my best.
It's kind of a concern, though, isn't it? Though I mean, when I think about this, obviously, I know finance is just different for stadiums and stuff. In America, you can get your state or your city to pay for it, which is absolutely outrageous. These clubs are owned by billionaires, and then taxpayers end up paying it. But that's a separate issue. Candlestick Park is 39 miles, almost 40 miles away from where Levi Stadium is now, and that may not seem like a big deal in the States, but it's absolutely a big deal if you've and I'm not saying they're doing this, I don't know that, but I hope they're not applying this thinking to it that like, hey, how about a brand new stadium? That sounds like a great idea, but and then we'll do it 25 miles away from the old Elland Road. That'll be easy to get to. It's just different sporting cultures, you know what I mean? So I hope there's enough appreciation for that.
I can't.
It might age terribly, this, but I can't see it being a new stadium. I think if it was, I think it was when Ridsdale wanted us to move in I think it was the early 2000s.
I just wouldn't put anything past the cultural obtuseness of American venture capitalists. That's all I'm saying. We're going to tell you what you're going to, then you're going to like it.
That's absolutely known. This was supposed to just be a nice conversation, and now you've just marred it with some point of which I didn't even consider. So thanks for that, Gabe. Now
you're welcome. I'm bringing the hard truth.
What I'd like to become is a bowl. Like in terms of like the Emirates, West Ham's ground, I think we'll lose.
West Ham's the worst. West Ham's the worst. It's awful.
Yeah. The atmospheres are terrible in there. I think
Bramley Moor looks good, though. The new Everton ground looks good. Bramley Moor.
it looks good from the outside, but when you actually, I'm not sure about
I
it.
think it's a little bit. It kind of looks a little bit German, like Hamburg or a
Yeah.
Schalke. I don't mind.
So
it.
when they demolish Elland Road, what do you know? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. If I was an Everton fan, I wouldn't be happy with that, to be honest.
They're not, from what I see. They're pretty enraged.
I think
That's what I mean. That is
but
the VC model. They're sort of risking. I'm not saying this will happen. I'm just saying that this is the logic of it. We build a brand new stadium. These folks are going to go anyway. They're going to whine, piss, and moan. But at the end of the day, they're going to pay their money and fill this stadium because they love this club. They don't have to love us. We'll make more money. It'll be one of the best stadiums in the world from a business point of view. We'll break it in. And yeah, some people may not love us, but oh well, we'll give them their medicine and they'll take it. Tell me that's not what we see in the Premier League now. And
yeah, but why have they not just increase the stand like Liverpool have done?
Maybe it's easier for them to do it this way. Maybe that's what they'd rather do.
It's cheaper to do it the way Liverpool have done it as well.
Prime location as well. Prime location as well, isn't it?
You're on Elland Road. There's space. There's so much.
I'm not arguing that this is what's going to happen. I'm not.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I'm saying it has to be considered that this may be the thinking.
There is a lot of space at Elland Road outside, other than the south stands. All three of the other stands, there's a lot of space behind to expand in those kind of areas. Personally,
I hope that's what they do, Oscar.
Steamroll McDonald's, make a massive car park there, extend the stadium. Easy.
If you're asking me to say that I think American VC folks will do what's probably the best thing for everybody, I'm just never going to say that ever.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's have a look at what people are saying. Just came into the stream. New stadium.
Lads.
That's the announcement, mate. That's it. So
Elland Road is coming down. That's how we started this segment. That's how we're ending it.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on Jesser and Raksaki as well. A pretty regular thing to say, but I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. He said, on turning down Leeds, my agent made me aware of the interest from them, and I knew it was a big club, but the manager here spoke to me, Sheffield United, and I was really impressed with what he said and the plans he had for me. So that made me decide to come. Oscar, initial impression of that quote?
Yeah, he's a good player, but I'm not, as much as he could be a really big player for Sheffield United this season, with the options we've got out wide, I'm not really losing sleep over this one, to be honest. I think it's an interesting one referring to Wilder, but I think Wilder's style would not suit a winger, really. He tends to be, if it was Kiefer Moore saying that, I could say, yes, I can totally see where he's coming from. But people like Callum O'Hare, I just don't see, Raksai, I just don't see how they can sort of say that their style of play suits those players. And
because it's waffle, Oscar. It's so transparent to me.
It's not to be taken.
It's so transparent to me how these agents all come from the basic school of PR. Oh, I spoke to the manager. Imagine saying I spoke to Chris Wilder and I was impressed.
I dreamed of playing with Kiefer Moore. I dreamed of playing with Kiefer Moore after seeing him in the Euros in 20.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, I don't know that you're.
I had the Kiefer Moore shirt when I was 18 or whatever. Just
it's just a generic line of nothing, because none of it matters. I'm not going to make a major career move because I had one conversation with a manager that is easily triggered. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where I get why they say it. Fine. Yeah, I guess it would have been nice to have him. I don't care. I like who we have. Good luck over there with Chris Wilder. Just for me, I don't even think that comes from the player. I would be very, very surprised. And that goes for every player. They all come out with the same tripe all the time. And it's just like, do these guys only go to one school of PR? Because it's all the same stuff. I had a conversation with the manager. I'm really excited how I'm going to be utilized. That's what Max Wober said as well. Didn't say, but or did he? That's pretty much what came out. I had a conversation with Farka. I'm really excited. Brendan Aronson. I had a conversation with Farka. Got me hyped up on the chocolate factory that he's building at Leeds. It's just nonsense.
You would be worried if they didn't have a conversation with the manager before signing, though. That'd be
exactly.
more of a worry.
Well, no, it would be. I'm just saying it doesn't mean anything.
I think what he's trying to insinuate there for me is that he's spoken to both managers, and Chris Wilder's managed to convince him. He's looked at both clubs and he's thought the project, the plan at Sheffield United is which I just don't.
He would have said the same thing if he signed for Leeds.
I don't see what the difference is between the plan. We both want to get promoted. Like, what's the difference in projects? I don't really understand.
The plan is this kid's got an agent that's feeding him some PR lines that he thinks sound good, and it just sounds like the same mindless drivel that everybody else says.
Yeah,
don't put anything into it whatsoever.
Yeah, 2 minutes. You have to carry on the conversation, guys.
Oh, he's got his tea orders ready. What a strange freeze as well. Oscar, what would you say if you're a new player signing for a club? We've just signed Oscar Marriott.
What club though? What club?
Leeds United. You come in.
Well, no, that'd be too genuine. What I'd say about that.
Sake, I'm asking folks. I'm asking him a basic question. He's over any club.
Just give me an obscure club. That means like Raksai. Just give me a random obscure club, and I'll tell you what I'd say.
Generic FC. You don't know anything about the club.
Give us natural club. Give us natural club. Go on. Any club.
Grimsby.
Well, it's great to be by the sea. I've always dreamed of the famous for its fish and chips. It's a club that's firmly on the up. We've got a chance to make history here. This is the top end, League One Championship club. In the waiting.
Oh, God.
It's a big town.
What the hell are you talking about?
I've asked Oscar to prepare some hypothetical comments if he was to sign for a club. He wouldn't do generic FC or Leeds. So I basically said Grimsby. Conor, you asked me what I would be trained to say if I signed for a new club. Go ahead. Just say, Gabe, welcome to Leeds.
I feel like you're going to really, really enjoy this.
I am. Just let me have a moment.
Like a lot of role play here.
You've signed for Brentford.
Okay.
Gabe looks like a Brentford player as well.
Definitely.
Or like a Fulham player.
The stats, the money ball, it's 100% Brentford.
Yeah.
So Mr. Flan.
You were placing Ivan Toney at Brentford. Go.
Hi, diddly hi, neighbor. Really happy to be here. Obviously spoke to the manager. This club's very ambitious. I knew from the moment I came in the stadium that this is where I wanted to be. And I'm looking forward to doing my best and getting this club up to where we want to be. See how easy that is? It means nothing.
And what made you sign? What made you sign for Brentford?
I've been following Brentford a long time. The fan culture is second to none. Obviously, anybody would be excited to live in this part of the world. And a chat with the manager. Already, some of my teammates have texted me. Seems like a great spirit in the lads, and really, really looking forward to being here. It's nonsense.
And what are your ambitions whilst being here at Brentford?
I'll say what I'd say, and then what I actually mean. What I'd say is, we want to get this club into Europe. I think this club has a lot of ambition.
He's gone big.
When you look at our ambition, I think we've taken some really strong steps. We have one of the best managers in the game. I think the ownership group is really invested where it matters. So I think that's our ambition, is win as many games as possible. What I actually mean is I'd like to move to a bigger club, and I'd like to showcase my skills here.
Oscar, do you remember that first ever Jesse Marsh interview where he was sat on that chair, wasn't he? And there was the Elland Road background. I think the American accent just hits a little bit different, doesn't it? It's very salesy.
You need the vocal fry if you're going to do the real American one. You'd be like, guys, I'm really excited to be here. I'm always going to fight. I'm always going to bring my best.
Like the equivalent. God. So, Oscar, you've just signed for Southport FC.
No, Grimsby. He signed for Grimsby.
Okay, he signed for Grimsby. What are your ambitions for Southport here? And why have you signed for the club?
Well, Grimsby is a club on the up. Yeah, we know it's a big town. It's it's famous for lots of things. In terms of
that's just not.
That's what happens when you go off script.
You've given me a Premier League club. You're giving me a League Two, struggling League Two club. Just give me a Premier League club.
Famous for a lot of things. Famous for the economic depravity here, the urban blight. It's all fantastic.
Give me Bournemouth.
But no, Oscar, the problem is you sound like a tour guide. You're just telling me about like what was going on around the area. It's like TripAdvisor on steroids. Gabe was that was like a sales pitch. It was very convincing. Ted Lasso, yeah, there we go. The natural.
Well, it's not comparable, is it? You give me a Grimsby, a League Two club, where it's not a great.
I like it. You're looking at the clubs.
I know, like it matters. I would say the same exact thing. I would say, listen, this club's been through hard times here at Grimsby, but we're on the up. We have a new manager here, and we're signing players, and the lads have been in touch. The ownership group isn't in touch. And we're really excited about this, and I'm excited to be here and looking forward to getting to work. Hard work. That's what people know me for.
An American accent in Grimsby would be definitely unique.
Can you
I
imagine?
don't know if it'd go down well.
No, I don't think it'd go down well at all. You get some like cod thrown at you. Or
people already call me Grimsby Gabe anyway.
I think me praising Grimsby's fish and chips will get me more. On
No. My favorite line that you gave was that we it's known for things throughout the world.
Oh God! Well, if you would like to read more of Gabe's stuff on everything Leeds United, you can go head over to www.oneleeds.com, where you will find one of Gabe's fantastic articles. I genuinely, Gabe, it was very, very good. You guys should go check that out. One Leeds is now, we've taken on 2 new authors for the site as well. It'll be publishing stuff every single week. I think Oscar's going to chime in every
Should
now
we
and
announce
again.
them? Who are they?
Well, in due course.
Okay, all right.
I'll tell you
not on the debrief, excuse
not
me.
on the debrief, I'll tell you. But
All
yeah,
right,
guys, thank you so much for contributing as well to oneleeds.com. We've eventually got it off, and we're going to be adding statistical data and stuff like that, your previews for your games, but not just the written word as well. It's going to be data packages and stuff on there as well, so we're trying to grow that. We've got Patreon, which is live now. Gabe's going to be coming on tomorrow. We're going to be doing Across the Pond and then Generation Leeds. Loads of bonus bits on there. And thank God we're back in with the football. But guys, it's been a very enjoyable episode. So thanks, Oscar, for joining, mate. It's been a real pleasure.
Southport's finest.
Grimsby.
Yeah, there we go. And Gabe, as always, it's been a pleasure, mate. Guys, thank you so much, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.